Mohammed is basically saying, look, we're going to see volatile prices. We're going to see, we're going to see lower oil prices. The question is, how low for long, right?
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, that's the million-dollar question that oil companies around the world would love to know the answer to, and nobody can put their finger on. And that's exactly the problem with the market is they can't get comfortable enough to know how low will this go, to know how many more jobs to cut, when to start ramping up production again, just when to get confidence and stable, and when to start drilling again. Because they can sort of adapt their costs as needed based on the price of oil if it's at a stable rate. But if it's not stable, they're just really, they almost would rather just not drill at all and wait.
Right. They're kind of in no man's land here in terms of certainty.
Yeah.
So, Julian, does that mean, given that, does that mean that OPEC is becoming either more or less influential in the oil markets, given what we saw on Friday?
Well, I think this is exactly what OPEC wants and feels it needs, a sense of uncertainty among its rival producers. They were facing a situation where the price of oil has fallen. They have adopted this policy a year ago of maintaining market share, of refusing to underwrite high-cost production. What happened in Vienna on Friday can be seen as an escalation of that policy, rather than maintain a fictitious output ceiling that nobody is anywhere close to adhering to. They have decided what, in their view, is the sensible thing, and that is to abandon any kind of ceiling and allow their members to produce as they wish. Now, most of them are already producing at or very close to capacity anyway.
Right.
And if you look, if you look at the big ones, the big OPEC members, none of them wants to cut production. Saudi Arabia started this policy in the first place. Iran is looking at the end of sanctions and the ability, it says, to add 1 million barrels a day. Iraq has already added 750,000 barrels a day over the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
So there is no appetite for cuts.
So, okay, but then, so given that, Julian, the fact that they're kind of like, you know what, you guys deal with it, we're just not going to, put any numbers out anymore. Does that mean that the markets don't listen as carefully going forward to what OPEC is going to say?
Well, I think the market will always listen to what OPEC says because they are still the only group of countries that have ever shown any attempt to manage the market by restricting supply. And several of the OPEC member countries, principally the Gulf Arab countries, are the only countries in the world with any spare production capacity who can raise their output quickly. Nobody else can do. What OPEC feels it has to do is to create an environment in which the growth in non-OPEC supply slows down to a sufficient level that there's room for growth in their own output.
David, we've got a chart that we have here at Bloomberg about a bar chart that actually shows, remember, there are not just losers here in the oil markets, there's also some winners as well. And Asian refiners, in fact, are seeing some of the best margins ever given the plunge in oil prices. I mean, do they come out as the biggest winners here so far?
Perhaps so. I mean, yeah, when you factor in that they can get the oil cheaper elsewhere based on the differential, then it's very possible. I mean, you've seen the Middle East grow, whereas the U.S. is cutting back. And so you've got this difference in the price of the Brent oil versus the WTI. And WTI is down even below 40 today at a 6-year low. So, yeah, there's definitely a difference there.
And what are CEOs saying? Like, what is the CEO of ConocoPhillips? What's the CEO of Exxon? I mean, what are these guys saying about when they think oil prices are going to rebound?
I mean, widely speaking, I seem to hear a lot of people keep pointing to kind of the second quarter of 2016 for when to watch this sort of supply-demand gap shrinking and getting tighter. Schlumberger has definitely talked about that as well, to look towards 2016, at least as far as sort of maybe not calling the bottom, but starting to see this sort of slowdown and possibly a slight, very slow uptick gain maybe in the second half of 2016.